Welcome to Writer Talks. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I introduce you to the winners of the short story contest that Two Sisters Writing and Publishing hosts every month. And then we publish our winners in our annual anthology of international writers. So, with me tonight is someone who wrote the most popular short story on our winning authors page on our website. Her name is Joanne DeMieri Kennedy. She is a New York City native, Brooklyn and Queens to be specific, and now she's coming to us live from Montclair, New Jersey. Welcome, Joanne.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. It's great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We're so proud of you. And your story, My Mother's Rosary, again, is the most popular, most read short story on our website. And it appears in our second annual anthology. So we're very proud of you for that. And your story is absolutely beautiful. Joanne, do you want to talk about why you wrote the story?
I wrote the story. It really happened. So you could call it creative nonfiction if you want to generalize that what it is. I wrote it as an actual tribute to my mom because, these were her rosaries. And if people don't know the story, I'm on an airplane and it's a pretty bad flight, and they fall from, because it's a bad flight, I fetch them out of my knapsack or my backpack, and I'm holding them because we're in a terrific storm over the Alps, and it was really scary, but it has a good ending in a way. So it's not, but anyway, the rosaries break in pieces. In fact, I have what remains. There's just a little bit that remained from that flight. And it's just really the connection that incident gave me with my mom, who died when I was younger. And I just always wanted to write about it because it was a scary real life situation. And the beads kind of, as I said, it was just a real connection to my mom. And I just had to get the story out there. I just felt like I was compelled to write it. I was really compelled to write it.
Well, it's beautifully written, and it's a tremendous tribute to your mother and some of the people on the plane. It's got a whole range of emotion that you experience. Of course, the terror of being on a scary flight, and the commentary, and the flight attendant says, "I thought you put it in the refuse," meaning the garbage, right? Because it fell, and and it's just really interesting. But the happy ending is always welcome.
Yes, and it is a happy ending because we landed, and it was an experience that I just had to write about.
Beautiful, beautiful. And now you just had another story accepted today, right?
Just recently, I wrote something during the pandemic. I was in lockdown, New Jersey and New York. We were pretty bad in March and April of last year. So we listened to our governors and we locked up. I also wasn't feeling well, and a bit of drama there. My doctor said, "Oh, you might have a mild case of COVID." So I literally took that to heed and did my quarantine. And this story came out of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's about at that time of year in the area that we live in, there's a large hawk population. And I really shouldn't be talking about it because it's not out yet, but actually it's about sort of an awakening to nature, living in an urban area. And that's my pandemic story. And I'm very happy that accepted. And yeah.
I love it, Joanne. My whole thing the whole time has been #quarantine and write. Like, what better time? We have to stay home. And now all the writers who say, "I don't have time," we have time now. We're home. And now there's a blizzard coming. So we definitely have time. But you exemplify this message that use this time. And you're also working on 2 novels. So How is that going? I mean, this is so powerful, such a great message for all the writers out there, Joanne, that you are saying and doing that and being recognized for. Use this time to create. It's like a hopefully a once in a lifetime experience, right?
I, I think that COVID is awful, and I'm really praying that there's an end to it. But for writers, COVID has, I mean, the writer friends that I have from my critique groups, or just people that I know, they finished novels during.
Yes.
They also are writing, and I watched some of your wonderful other authors,
Mhm.
and hearing them. I think
Yes.
you had someone on, was it Johnson? And he talked about how much he wrote.
Anthony Johnson, yes.
That's exactly what's happening in the community of writers that I know, because it's that we have more time. We're not meeting family. We're not going on trips. So if you write, COVID, unfortunately, I hate to use the word, it's a blessing, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
It's sort of like, it sort of gives us no excuse, right?
Right. So Joanne, absolutely, it's horrific. The amount of death and illness and grief and all that is horrible. However, the gift of writing for those of us who must write, it's what we do. It's an escape, a retreat from the anxiety, the angst, the headlines. When you
Exactly.
immerse in, okay, yes. So it's not to make light and celebrate the fact that
No,
it's that
no, all.
writing is our retreat. It's our healing place. It's our escape. And
No,
I have chills talking about that.
I totally agree. I mean, COVID is awful, and it's sort of, for me, was a therapy, because I lived in fear, not knowing what was going to happen. I lived in fear for my children, who are
Yeah.
adults now. I lived in fear for much older people that I know.
Mhm.
So it was awful, and writing was the escape from that reality, because I'm sure it's the same in Detroit.
Mhm.
The news was awful.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So
Yes.
then just going and putting pen to paper or going onto my laptop was a relief. It was sort of just took me away from that. It did.
Yes.
But
Yes.
in no way am I,
No.
that COVID was a good thing. But for writers,
Yeah.
it sort of gave us more time, and then to create also more writing about contemplation and life and a whole new genre.
Yes, I love it. I love it. It's awesome. And a lot of writers really draw from our most genius places amidst suffering, unfortunately.
Yes.
Or artists in general often draw from places of suffering for their most intense writing. But so Joanne, you said something about your critique group. Tell us about that.
I have been involved in critique groups for years, because I obviously, you have a day job, or you have children, or you're doing just so much stuff in the day. And I always I always wanted to write more than just what I did at work or whatever. So I joined my first critique group, but I had young children, and that's when I wrote my first novel, which is sitting in a drawer, waiting to be found. And then my most recent critique group also helped me write the second one. So, and the short stories, the one in Two Sisters, my Mother's Rosary, was written in my group and was critiqued by my group. So that I have to tell you, I think it's a wonderful thing to join a group of talented writers, or even writers who are just beginning, and share. It's a support group. I really, unfortunately, we disbanded because of COVID right now, but we're hoping that some of us will get back into another group. But it's the critique groups have just made me a better writer. I have to say that. I don't know if you come across that with other authors, and not to be afraid of joining, because some people are afraid of the criticism. But I've had very kind, and it's also great to have feedback on your writing.
Oh, for sure. So, Joanne, for those of us who aren't really familiar with how a critique group works, is it weekly? Do you exchange your materials on paper or via email? And then is everybody assigned to another person, like a Secret Santa, or how does that work?
Well, first of all, in my most recent one, we a couple of us knew each other and started it. So what you do is you ask for samples of writing and make sure that the group is willing to read that genre, because sometimes
Oh,
you get pieces that the group doesn't agree on, and it's
uh-huh.
nothing against the quality of the writer or whatever.
Hmm.
It's just that uh, there's a decision to be made. And then what you do is, once you have a group, and our group is about 6 or 7, we met once a week and outside of our homes, because a lot of the members had children, and that's very hard to do even with COVID. It's
Hmm.
impossible. And we wrote up to 2,500 words, whether it was part of a short story, memoir, or a novel. And we critiqued it on, again, I'm advertising something. We used Google Docs, to be honest with you, because it was just so much easier than doing
Oh,
hard
okay.
copy. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, and we'd meet and have a small dinner, and then for 2 hours we would critique each other. Now, there were weeks where I didn't have anything to present because of whatever. You just don't have the time.
Hmm.
But basically, with a group the size of like 5 or 6 or 7 people, there's always someone who has something to present. And what's really great is the support of it, and also learning about conferences and what's going on in your area.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I'm blessed that in our area there's a big literary group,
Oh,
so
yeah.
you can join that.
Hmm.
So writing critique groups, and I've been in a couple, have been definitely positive. I recommend it to anyone who wants to hone their skill, who needs feedback, and also make friends.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very positive in my
Hmm.
experience.
Hmm. That is awesome. Now, what about trust and fears and all that stuff? I've never done it because I'm too scared.
Yeah, I yeah, there is an apprehension, because you don't know if your work's going to be accepted, or of course you want your writing to be liked, and you want an audience. But in
Hmm.
a critique group, what you're really doing is also getting ideas that you have and that you've put to paper. And sometimes it doesn't work, and they're honest. Your fellow writers, because if they're not honest, then there's really no point to a critique group.
Mm,
But
right.
I would say, to just for any authors out there who listen to this interview or whatever, try it. There's nothing to lose. You can always leave a group if it doesn't work. But for
Hmm.
me, I have written so many short stories that are still in editing and in an editing form. I've written novels, and
Hmm.
and and, and another thing is just as I said, the information that you get, that they'll tell you. I think for my Mother's Rosary, I think someone in the group actually gave me that information, that you were doing a contest,
Oh.
and they knew that I had this story. So I probably would not have found out about it.
Hmm.
And not saying that I didn't know about Two Sisters, because you do use the format of submittable, which is another great thing, by the way, I think, for authors. And I only learned about this through my group.
Wow.
I only learned about the poets and writers, things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
That's
definitely.
awesome, Joanne. Thank you for that. So, talk about your writing process. Like, do you write every day at the same time? Do you have a little ritual around it? What's your writing process like?
I try to write every day. And I
Hmm.
learned that in my first critique group years ago when I had young children. And the moderator was an older woman who was a poet. And she said to us, if you have kids, and I know that they require a lot of attention, but lock yourself in a room, let your partner deal with them, and write for 30 minutes or whatever. Do it every day. It's the best advice. Not saying that I do that all the time.
Right.
But she added something like very funny, which she said, only leave if there's an emergency.
Right.
If there's not, if they want something, you just try to and that's what you have to do. So I'm not in that position anymore, but what I try to do is allocate an hour a day to write.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then is it always at the same time? And do you have any like things you must do to have like coffee or anything?
I do sometimes write before I do my yoga in the morning.
Okay.
Or I write at night, which, I do a tea and whatever. But what I do on the weekends are that I reward myself. So if I do 2 pages, I'll get my chocolate bar. I have a hot chocolate. I know it sounds sort of.
No, it doesn't. It's awesome.
I'm a baby teenager, but it actually works because you know that when you do those 2,500, especially when we're in the critique, but we finish at 2,500 words that you're going to submit.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a nice feeling to have that chocolate or even a glass of wine.
Yes. I love that, rewarding yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it works for me. I don't know.
That's so cool. I just love that. And how do you feel when you're writing? Is it like you block out the world, you lose track of time, you just engrossed in it? Do you love it? Is it grueling?
I really love writing. So I write, my world around me just closes and I'm just in that world.
Yes.
And I actually look forward to it. Editing is another story. I'm not, editing is hard, and I'm doing a second draft right now. But even with the second draft, because I love my protagonist so much, I really look forward to doing that. But writing is a joy for me. I don't write to be a success. I know that that's maybe not what you want to hear. I would like to be published more, and of course, one of my novels to be published. But I write because I enjoy it. I love to create the story, the scenes, the characters, the conflict. That to me, it's the main really reason why I write, because I know, because I get rejections, I know how hard it is in the real world. Mm-hmm. to get published.
Mm-hmm. So I'd love to talk about that word success. To me, like everyone has their own definition, but to me, anybody who's actually doing the act of writing is a success, because there's so many distractions to not write, including our own fears and anxieties around it. So just the fact that you're writing is a success, and you're being recognized by us and by the new experience you described and your critique group. And so those, you're doing it. That's success. Writing an hour a day is success.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because that is true. What you're saying. I think just writing and completing something and having it in front of you is what I was talking about. Is that I was a reader when I was in college for agents. At that time, there was no internet. So I would pick up manuscripts and read them for a very nominal fee. But, when you're in college, you need the money. Mm-hmm. And I saw the rejection then. And I often thought, I would never want to do this. I would never want to subject myself to the rejection. But later on in my life, I fell in love with writing. So of course that's part of it. Mm-hmm. But I know the real world. I know it's hard, and but I'm not going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to finish this second draft. I'll do the third draft of this novel, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
hopefully find a home for it.
So what's your vision? You want to get published by a traditional publisher or self-publish or use a hybrid like us?
I haven't really thought about it. I have some friends who are writers and have begun that process of
Mm-hmm.
finding either an agent or doing these online contests for books. I'm not really sure about that. You probably know more about that. But I haven't really given it much thought because I'm still concentrating on getting the second draft done.
Yeah,
And
so can you talk
yeah,
about your novels then? Like you don't have to give away the topic or anything, but just like the process of going from a short story is short and a novel is long. So like what's your word count and your genre and such?
okay, so it's probably one of my writing partners said she would describe my writing as literary fiction. I don't
Hmm.
really know, but I tend to write about people who have to overcome something in their lives and
Hmm.
find you know, the yellow brick road. I don't know. But so that's basically what this novel is that I'm working on right now.
Hmm.
And its protagonist is a woman. She's a little quirky, a little funny. She's had some unfortunate things happen to her in her life, but she then is presented with this uh, how can I say it? She's presented with a problem that has to be solved, and she has to do it. Yet she's very, very anxious about doing it. But when she comes face to face with it, it unravels, and she finds that she can really handle almost anything. So basically, that's the story. Yeah,
Oh, I
and
love that.
it
That's
takes place.
awesome.
It takes place in the States, and then in a country that I've grown to really love. A lot of it takes place in Scotland. So yeah,
Oh,
involved.
have you been to Scotland?
Yes, I have. I have, and I love it. It's got
And
so
what do you
much.
love
Even
about it?
for the Outlander, I've been in love with Scotland. Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
great.
What did you love about Scotland?
My daughter and I did a mom daughter trip, and we went to the Inner Hebrides, which is the line of islands off the coast. There's something really magical about it because it's just I can't really explain it. You have to go there. You have to experience. There's a sort of a mystery about it because it's so off the beaten path. And in fact, there are some islands that don't even have electricity. That we didn't
Really?
do that, but it definitely influenced me to do this novel. Yeah, where most of it takes place.
Oh, wow, that's so amazing. That's so cool. And
Yeah.
your other one, are they both done or they're still like, are you just editing or what phase are you in?
Well, the one that's sort of waiting to be looked at again is something that I did in, I don't know if you're familiar with NaNoWriMo.
Yes, of course, November.
So I did that during 1 November. I did the
Hmm.
50,000 and I let it be for months and then picked it up again and said, I really like this. I'm going to work on it. And that's what happened.
Yay!
There are times when I write stuff and I look at it and I say, oh no, this is never going to happen. And I get
Uh-huh.
feedback from your group and you just know that it's not working, that leave it alone for a while. But
Uh-huh.
with this one, it's a historical fiction, which I've never done.
Hmm.
And
I
that's,
love it. So do you have to
yeah,
do a lot of research?
yes,
Hmm.
a
What
lot
time
of
period?
stuff. It's the 1500s.
Ooh, that's really fun. Like, so before we'd have to go to the library, but now everything's at our fingertips online, which is so awesome. When I wrote a book with Billy D. Williams, Twilight, not the vampire series, he wanted it to be set in Brazil, and I'd never been there. And it was before the internet was big. So I had to read books, listen to Portuguese tapes and travel guides and all this stuff. And none of it was online. So writers have it so easy now that everything's literally in the palm of our hands.
Yeah, I mean, for the Scottish background, I had to go online and actually just research phrases and idioms because I'm not Scottish. So that was fun.
Oh, wow.
Because obviously they're originally it's a Gaelic language in Scotland, but of course it's been anglicized. So that was fun doing it. But that's all online. You don't have to go. You're right. You don't. That's the magic of internet.
Yes. And then you can watch videos about these venues. You can literally see it. And people are talking about what does it smell like? What does it, feel like, temperature? So very, very cool, Joanne. Wow. And I love that you work in multiple genres. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's I haven't really perfected sci-fi or fantasy, but I have fellow writers who write in that genre. But that's exciting as well. Maybe one day I'll tackle that.
Uh-huh. Are you working on anything else?
I'm working on well, actually, I completed a short story, got rejection. So when that happens, I relook at something and say, well, how can I make this, how can I perfect it? And I attended a workshop, and there was an author there who we got talking afterwards, and I told him that I belong to groups, and he said, well, one thing to remember, and he just said this, he said, just write your best. And that was it. Just write your best. So when I get rejections, I generally go back and say, well, how can I make this better? How can I make it my best? And it's challenging because for me, I don't know how you feel being a writer, is that I have to leave it be in a drawer or on the laptop. And then I have to go back to it in a couple of weeks with a fresh view.
Yes. And so there's many layers to that, because it's very important to do that, because when you're immersed in it, you can't see the forest for the trees. Whereas when you set it down, you come back with fresh eyes. However, a lot of times things might happen, or we have a revelation, and then we come back to it and we're like, oh no, I have a different opinion, a different viewpoint now. I need to change this and that. So it's an ongoing process, but it's called rewrite-itis.
That's a good one. I have to remember that.
Rewrite-itis is a real affliction for writers because we always want to change things. And I heard somebody yesterday say a project will expand into the amount of time you allot for it. So unless you have a strong deadline that you're going to finish something, it literally can just go on forever and a day and never be done. And writing is like that. So you just have to draw the line. But we also want to make things as perfect as possible. And we're wordsmiths, that's really fun, where you're picking the exact perfect verb here and shortening the sentence there. And it's wonderful. So, wow, Joanne. And also thank you for coming to our 5-year anniversary party last week. That was just so wonderful to see you come and join our friends and family and writers to celebrate our 5 years in business, because you've been a big part of that, especially since your story is in our 2nd annual anthology of international writers, and it's the most popular read story on our website.
You made my day when you told me that. That was really, really wonderful. And it was really great meeting everyone. And you have such a great following, and you're doing such a great job promoting writers. And I love the idea of two sisters writing and publishing. It's great. You and your sister.
Joanne. Thank you so much. Well, Catherine's watching, so she's hearing you right now.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. And I love the logo. I told you that. That's so cool. That is like glasses. You really got that. That's
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, Well, Joanne, I wish you the absolute best success, however you choose to define it. I think you're already successful. And I wish you wellness. And I hope to meet you in person someday when all of this is over. So, is there anything you'd like
Right.
to add for other authors, like any advice?
Well, I think if you move to a new place, and I've done that a couple of times, the first thing I do is I join the library because
Oh,
libraries have a great conduit of events and things to join. I mean, here in New Jersey, where I live, the library hosts lectures by authors. There's just I find that the free library is a host for many venues for writers, and that's what I do almost whenever I move to a new place. I join the library. I see if they're having any events and book talks. You know, I love going to book talks. Um, I think my main advice is try to join a critique group if you're really doubting, you know, your writing. If you're and I think writers really do love to write, and sometimes they're not sure about if it works. And I think
mm-hmm.
if you go to a critique group, you'll get a positive, um, definitely a positive reaction.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you so much for all of that. And Joanne, thank you so much for joining me on Writer Talks, where you got to share all this wisdom and inspiration with the viewers and the writers out there. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great.
You're welcome, Joanne. Let's
And
keep in touch,
come
okay?
visit. Come visit New Jersey.
I will. I will definitely come visit.
You and your sister. Well,
Okay, that will be so fun.
really.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
Joanne.
Take
All
care.
right. You're
Bye.
welcome. And thank you, all of you, for joining us here on Writer Talks, where you got to meet Joanne DeMieri Kennedy, a wonderful writer and winner of our short story contest for My Mother's Rosary, the most popular story on our website. And hopefully, get to read her 2 novels sometime soon when they're published. So thank you for joining us. This is Writer Talks. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins. I hope you'll stay tuned. In 30 minutes, Catherine and I will be doing 10,000 Things, our show here on the YouTube channel, where we talk about the 10,000 things you need to know to write, publish, and promote your book. So thank you, and we wish you happy reading and happy writing.